Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I was uh, I was just waiting for anybody else that's gonna join us here at the last minute. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I just want to go around the horn. I don't need a full introduction. I just want to know like where everybody's working your department. Just so I have an idea of where you're working at here in on the university, or if you're not here at the U of A, what you do, so that way as we're talking through some of the topics today, maybe I can steer it towards maybe the way it applies to you. So Nathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. As clearly, my name is Nitin, and I'm from India, and I'm in the Department of Information Sciences. I'm doing my master's in machine learning,
Okay.
and yeah, I came to this to find out how research projects are conducted and what's the protocol, how a system can be designed to make people work together and towards the same goal.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm actually not fully sure what I'm looking forward to, but I would like to learn more about how it's implemented nowadays and how projects are conducted.
Okay. That sounds good. Juliana.
Hello, my name is Juliana Gil. I work on School of Natural Resources in the ecosystem genomics area, and I'm a research specialist. So usually work with a lot of people, interdisciplinary groups towards a goal with tons of data, collecting data like every second, for example, from an instrument. So
Okay.
yeah, I like to get more resources and just how we can just be more efficient and effectively managing all these projects.
Okay. Okay. That's good, Juliana. Thank you. Francesca, how you doing?
Hi, good. You?
Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for joining.
of course. Yes, I am an assistant professor in neurology, and I'm mainly work on Alzheimer, Parkinson, neurodegenerative diseases, and specifically machine learning, data science, and AI projects. So I'm also very kind of new in tenure track. So for me, this would be very helpful, like to learn also how to do structure research, grants, and these type of things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Coyote.
Hi, I'm a postdoc at Northern Arizona University. I'm doing infectious disease modeling, so using mathematical, statistical, and machine learning tools. And the reason why I signed up for this is because I'm currently writing a grant, and if I get a grant, I'll be managing research projects, even though I've been managing some small research projects here, and also as I plan, to become a tenure track as soon as. So that's why I I joined this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so as I get started here, hopefully this will address a lot of stuff that I just heard from each of you. Okay, first of all, here's the first slide here, just a quick intro slide. So this is leadership through project management, team culture tips for successful research projects, and this is part of the research productivity workshop. And today's the first of three sessions that I'm going to be hosting. So here's the workshop series format. So the workshop purpose overall is just to enhance effectiveness across leadership, planning, and project management. And so the way I have approached this is to provide a leadership piece, which is the foundation of what I feel is to successful teams. And then if you're in planning or project management, that leadership piece is extremely important to be able to create this culture that I'm about to talk about today. I also talk about humility and leadership, and then just give a quick once over on planning and project management. It's not a deep dive in any shape of the imagination. It's just simply giving you definitions, and then that's it. And then that way, it's a primer for my next session, which will be planning and then project management. And then we'll talk about some key takeaways at the end, and hopefully we'll have some good discussion at the end. So here's the agenda. So I'm going to go over some references, and then I'm going to go over the creating a culture of success. To me, this is the leadership plug. I'm going to talk about humility and leadership, planning and project management overview, like I've already talked about, uh, key takeaways, and then, like I said, discussion and questions at the end. So references. So I do have my project management professional certification, which I received in um, September of 2023. And so I have went out and I've been reading these references from the Project Management Institute. One of them is the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide. And then they also have process groups, a practice guide. They have a whole host of others, but these are the two that are most relevant to today's lesson. And then the Emperor's Handbook from Marcus Aurelius. Um, th- there's going to be some things I talk about here, but essentially just a great leader, great example of leadership. And so we do pull out some lessons learned from that. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, talk about Blink as well, Malcolm Gladwell, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. Um, that's mainly to pull out some of his exercises that he provides to draw out your own biases. Um, I'm a retired Marine. I spent over 28 years of service to our nation as a Marine, and so of course I'm going to bring in some of our doctrine and some of the things that have influenced the way I view leadership. So creating a culture of success. So leadership defined. Right now, you could go out and you can probably find I don't know how many different examples or definitions of leadership. I'm sure there's definitely a lot. And so, of course, I'm a retired Marine, so I'm using, General Clifton B. Cates. He's our 19th Commandant, but I didn't pick it because he was a Marine. I picked it because I really feel that this was a very honest um, take on leadership and how do you define it. And so the way he defined it was leadership is intangible. It's hard to measure and difficult to describe. Its qualities would seem to stem from many factors, but certainly they must include a measure of inherent ability to control and direct, self confidence based on expert knowledge, initiative, loyalty, pride, and sense of responsibility. And the way I look at it in my own words is to effectively influence and inspire a group of people to thrive where they are in the pursuit of mission success. And so this leads me to human interaction. And when I look at leadership at the foundation, it has everything to do with human interaction. So you could see our very own here at the University of Arizona, Dr. Clara Curiel, dermatologist working on a patient. Um, Over here to the right, you see uh, Brigadier General Dwight D. Eisenhower in the middle, and he's working with two other brigadier generals. And this was right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And here, there's a data science fellows program. And you could see we have our director, Rob Merchant, we have some of our educators, and then most importantly, our students. Um, Again, over to the right, here I am in Sherghazi, Afghanistan, Helmand Province. We're working with a local elder, and then I'm working with the Georgian army, and then I'm working through a translator. So as you can see, going through these photos, um, I just want to highlight that everything we do, leadership wise, work wise, etc., when it comes to leadership, at the foundation, it's about the human interaction. And so, one of the things I like to draw out when I speak about leadership is emotional intelligence. And so, this quad chart shows like the upper quadrants is about you, And this is about essentially an assessment of yourself. So that first quadrant right there, self-awareness, it's like asking the questions. How do you affect the team? How does the team affect you? And self-management, think before you act. How do you build trust, right? It says build trust here. Okay, great. We're going to talk about that. Social awareness and social skill. So these two lower quadrants are going to be speaking to that human interaction piece. And so for social awareness, be empathetic, employ active listening. For social skill, we talk about establishing rapport, building effective teams, manage attitude. So we look at this quad chart and you're like, okay, I can answer these. So that means, I'm gonna be an expert at emotional intelligence. No, I'm not telling you that at all. But I am telling you that these are some of the things that we as leaders need to be reflecting on as we are engaging with other people, right? Because at the end of the day, like I keep saying, leadership is all about that human interaction, the human dynamic, relationships, right? And so emotional intelligence being extremely critical to your success as a leader. And so, continuing with this creation of a culture, it's like, well, what is that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody, in the group right now, can you tell me, um, like when I say culture, what does that mean to you if you're leading a team of, say, 2 or 10 people? What do you think you're bringing to the table that is your responsibility as a leader? Anyone? And go ahead, Juliana.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually I'm a on-hand person, so I like to on the field, like getting my hands dirty with
Okay.
everyone. So I guess that will be kind of my style
Yeah, I love
of
that.
leadership.
Yeah, it's like that leadership by example, right? If they're working hard, you want to be right there with them. So nah, I get that. Nathan, did you have something?
Yeah, so in my mind, management is more of a service kind of act. So if one is managing, one has to provide an environment where people can thrive and work with each other towards the same goal. So that's my take on this.
Okay. No, that's perfect. Um, yes, that the idea is that you want people to be comfortable coming to work, and then you want to enhance their capabilities, right? And that's
Exactly.
where that's where I say, like, you want people to thrive, and you don't want to hold them back.
Yeah.
And so here, leadership is a choice and an action. Nathan, Julian, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Um, but like right here, leadership is a choice and action. It's the way I look at it. There's a difference between authority versus leadership. Authority means, in my opinion, the way and it's defined is you're put in a position and you probably have decision making authorities. And that gives you, I don't want to say power, but that's going to give you that authority, right? To exude your power. Leadership, on the other hand, again, it's influencing folks without all that intimidation, fear, etc. It's just being inspirational. You're motivating your people um, to do the things that they need to do that generally they probably wouldn't want to do in the first place. Servant leadership. This bullet right here is all about identifying that servant leadership is all about your people, has nothing to do with you. And so, one of the things that we strive for in leadership billets or in leadership positions, I should say, is that as a leader, what you want is you are going to take responsibility for those failures that a lot of people will run away from. But if we do good, that's because our people did good. If we do okay, we did all right. But if we do bad, the leadership, you take on that responsibility. And that servant leadership is all about your people and elevating them to that next level of performance. And so like leadership is a skill. That particular bullet is saying that leadership can be trained. You can be trained as a leader. A lot of people will say, "Wow, you're either born or you're not a leader." Um, you're either born a leader or you're not. And what this is saying is that yes, indeed, you can develop your leadership uh, capabilities. And again, you could see the picture over here to the right. You're either a boss or you're a leader. And the difference is there is let's go as that leader's in the front. Juliana, you said it. Hey, I have to get my hands dirty too. And that's what that's about. And, at the bottom here, I have inspire and motivate. That's what it's all about, inspiring your people and motivating them to come in and do the best they can do, but you're guiding them. So this leads me to those leadership expectations. What I expect from my leadership is they're going to provide guidance to the unit, to the department, to the team. They're going to manage risk, and they're going to make decisions in a timely fashion. So that way we can continue moving and progressing in whatever we're doing. If it's a project, if it's within a department, if it's the mission of the department, what are we trying to achieve? And then making sure that we're guiding folks through that process. And, when I talk about vision, mission, and clarity, well, leadership is providing that. Now, maybe you are not the department lead, but you're a leader in your own right with inside that department. That vision's there. If somebody is off, or you think that what is happening, the vision may be off, it is our duty as leadership to make sure that we bring that back into clarity, right? We bring it back into focus and we realign ourselves, or we have to maybe change that vision, which would probably be harder. You probably have to align yourself in what you're doing to that vision, but that's not always the case. Mission, mission is very much a in the moment, and it could be um, one of those things that is a task for your project, for your team working on something. And so does everybody understand what that mission is? And the one thing that mission provides the team, the department, etc., is the purpose. Why are we doing something? And so that's why it's extremely important to have that, because you don't want to have to come in to work and say like, well, what are we doing today? And again, this goes back to leadership expectations, providing guidance, managing risk for the organization, and making key decisions along the way to keep the progress of whatever you're doing moving. So, but at in any doesn't matter where you're at. I spent time in the military, I spent time in a small business. Now I'm here in academia. What I will tell you is there's always these 4 types of friction that are always working or trying to work against humans. Self-induced friction. Self-induced friction are all those things that could be, tabled as poorly drawn up plans, guidance that's not properly articulated. It could be, issues with personnel, so conflict the lack of or a lack of ability to acknowledge conflicts within the team, and how do you address that or don't. And those are all self-induced, where it's like these are things that you can definitely control. External friction, on the other hand, are all the things that I would say are not in your control. So that could be weather, that could be, you know, a disaster, right? Or that could be a memo that comes down from the department. Maybe that is something that's happening maybe at the university level. There are some things we just cannot control. So we have to deal with them. And so what I would tell you is the one thing that you can control is how you respond to that external friction. And we're going to get into that. Physical and mental, those are those other types of friction where, you know, if you don't have a good night's rest, you come into work, maybe you're cranky, maybe you're upset. Some people will say, well, I didn't get enough caffeine. You know, whatever it may be, though, that's that physical aspect of what we deal with as humans. Um, and maybe you went for a long run and you're sore today and you're just not yourself. That could be part of it. The mental piece, everybody has a life outside of work. So there's things that are coming in from outside the work the work area, or you know, wherever you're working, and then the things that are happening within your department, etc. And those things coming together could lead to mental anguish, you know, some other issues, that you would maybe classify as, you know, it's impacted me mentally. Um, and so, why are these things important for leaders to understand that they even exist and that they're classified and that these are real types of friction? It goes right back to emotional intelligence. So I'll give you a vignette. You walk in, you have a strong performer. You know this person is a strong performer. And today they're giving you attitude. They're very short with you, kind of disrespectful. And you told them that they need to get something done, by 10 o'clock, and it's already noon, and they haven't even given you the courtesy, that it's done or not done. So you have to go and confront them, right? Whether you're working hybrid or in person, you either go to them or you type them an email. Hey, where we're at with this stuff. So you can do it. You have a couple options on how you want to deal with that. You can either get them on the line, get them on the phone, and start yelling, or what I always tell folks is, again, that emotional intelligence. You know that their baseline, they're always a top performer, and today they're just off. So that allows you that opportunity to show that you actually care for your people. And you're like, well, how, Rudy? Well, maybe you start off the conversation with, is everything okay? And you never know what they're going to say to you. A lot of times, if 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 you do this with a person, a human, they're probably going to reciprocate and be like, yes, I'm having a bad day today. And they may tell you what it is. They're not obligated to tell you, but 90% of the time, of the instances where I had to do this, that human is going to tell you what's going on. And that's going to save you, right? Having an issue larger than just, okay, you just had a bad day. And we're going to work through that together. So, as leaders, we're there to mitigate that friction, and we're there to cultivate that human will. And when I say cultivate the human will, it's like every day, you know, you are faced with these types of friction. And when you're coming to work, do you really want to be here? Right? And that's what we want. We want our people to be here, want to be here. We want them to thrive. And because we have things that need to get done. So, you know, just taking that moment to be able to, it could be a teachable moment, or it could be a moment for you to earn respect, because that's the other piece with servant leadership, is that we're not demanding respect because of our position of authority, but it's just because we're just being good people, right? And we care about our folks, but we need to understand what are all those things that are impacting our people. So when they're having a bad day, we're able to address it in a very productive and constructive way. Does anybody have any questions about this particular slide here and these 4 types of friction? Okay.
I usually I would like to add sometimes there's kind of cultural friction, let's say based on
What is it?
culture. Maybe there's also like culture differences in culture and how things are done and how people communicate that is based on the culture that I think sometimes
Yes.
have to do.
So yeah, something like with cultures, right? Um, I mean, that's a hard one. I would probably classify that as external, to some degree because it's something that we can't control. Right? I can't control that I came from the military and I have a military background and I walked into academia. So if you look at these two cultures, right, hierarchical is the culture that the military is classified as. Academia, on the other hand, um, is a adhocracy. So it is the complete opposite on the quad chart that describes the different types of cultures. And what I would tell you is, again, you can't maybe control the culture, right, per se, but you can control how you interact with the culture. And that goes back to that external friction is like there's things that we cannot control, but we but we can control our response. And Juliana, I'll tell you, I have many stories of when and I've been working here for about 27 months now, and not that I'm counting, but that's how long I've been here is 27 months, and I'd be lying to each of you if I said, oh yeah, my transition military, now I'm here in academia, oh it's been so easy. No, and it's because of I think what you're talking about is that there's differences in cultures, um, with regards to that, and maybe even um, the different cultures of our backgrounds, right? So, um, but I don't know if that answered your question, Juliana.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, good to go. All right, so continuing on here. So challenges. So right here, there's a picture of Denali reflecting off of Wonder Lake in Alaska. And, we could agree or disagree, but I think this is a beautiful picture. And so when people are looking at, say, a job description and it's a leadership position that pays more, that has more responsibility, etc., from afar, when you're looking at it, like just like this picture, it looks amazing, it looks beautiful. And what I would tell you is I liken leadership positions to this picture because if, again, from afar it looks beautiful, but if you try to ascend and try to climb Denali and you don't have a plan, you're not properly trained, you don't have the right equipment, maybe you don't have the right guides and mentors to get you up there, um, you're probably going to have a very difficult time ascending to the top, to Denali. So you're gonna want to have a plan. Maybe you want to go and have other experiences before you try to tackle, um, Denali, to climb it. So I liken it to leadership as well. And some of the challenges that you're gonna face are conflict management, biases, and professional insecurity. And with conflict management, that's that piece I was talking about earlier, where you're potentially going to have conflicts with you as a leader, with the people that you're entrusted to lead, or the people that you're entrusted to lead. Maybe 2 or 3 of those members are not getting along. So how do you address that? And those are those things that are challenges that you're going to have to address. Biases. So Malcolm Gladwell, the book Blink, that is one of the references that I mentioned. Malcolm Gladwell does a good job, and he has a couple um, exercises that you can put yourself through to be able to start identifying your own biases. And why that's important to acknowledge is, again, that emotional intelligence piece, right? Being able to listen to folks rather than just listening to respond. Um, like those biases need to be checked, right? So I used to always say it. This is when I was in the Marine Corps, and even now, where if I was in charge of a unit, I didn't want to have my own biases because now the decisions I'm going to be making are not going to be, they're not, this is my thought process is that they're not going to be aligned for the best interest of the organization that I'm working with or working for. And that ultimately impacts the people that I'm entrusted to lead. So you have to check your biases to make so that way you can make clean-hearted decisions in for the betterment of whatever department unit that you're working with. Professional insecurity. Professional insecurity, I think, is a big one because a lot of times if you're getting put in positions of authority, leadership positions, etc., you may not be comfortable in your own skin to assume those positions, right? So it's something that you need to be cognizant to avoid the way you portray yourself, because a lot of times that could be an issue, right? You'll there's times where you'll want to overcompensate if you don't know something, but you think like, man, I need to be able to, I can't look like I don't know something. um like and I'm going to talk about humility here in a minute. um but that'll guard you from that type of response, right? Being able to say I don't know is okay, is my point. um Recommended actions, again, emotional intelligence, being cognizant of that, being engaged and being involved with your people, right? That's going to get you comfortable with knowing who they are. That it's going to get them comfortable to know who you are, how you think, how you do business. um, and then lead people and manage things mentality. And that is really important to me. It goes right back to the foundation of leadership, which is to be able to understand to understand that at the foundation, unvarnished, leadership is about people. It's about humans. And so the manage things portion of this are things like a Gantt chart or a schedule, a budget. Those are things that you need to manage, but you don't treat those things the same as you do people. And if you do, you're gonna have issues. So that's why I like lead people and manage things mentality. Keep those things separate and distinct, and that's gonna help with these three challenges that you're gonna have. Okay, so I'm gonna get into humility and leadership. Does anybody have any questions, anything at all for me at this point? Lady Mike. Hello, Mike. Are you there? Mike B, are you there? Okay. Tina J, you're there? Okay.
Hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Thank you for being here. Okay, I'm gonna continue here. Okay, so any questions up to this point? Okay. So I'm gonna get into humility and leadership. So being
Really quickly, Rudy, I'm going to have to come back. There's something wrong with my audio, but I'll be back. Thank you.
okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so for the humility and leadership piece, before I get into it, what I will tell you is I wrote an article that was ultimately published in the Marine Corps Gazette. And this was in August of 2019. I actually started writing the article way back in 2017 because I was very passionate um, about some things that were going on professionally at the time when I was still in the Marine Corps, and I just wanted to address something in a very constructive way. So I ended up having this idea about how do I how do I convey what I think are some useful approaches to managing teams effectively, right? To get us from some very um, difficult and challenging missions that we need to get through, and then like how do we make that a reality? And so I came up, and it didn't just come off the top of my head. It was just something that I guess I had been trying to practice, right? And I was trying to understand, like, okay, what I'm doing, how do I articulate this? So this was that article was a thing that I was finally able to articulate what my approach is. And so and this is definitely my approach, I could tell you, but it is an approach that I saw that when leaders presented themselves this way, um, anybody you spoke to, they'd be like, now, so and so is a good leader. And it was just to me some common fibers that I found in good leaders. And so this one, I say be practical because I really feel that everything we've talked about up until this point, to include the 4 types of friction, to include the challenges that I've already uh, uh, showed showed you and discussed with you up until this point, being practical and displaying humility, being authentic, and having a positive mental attitude breaks down so many barriers and it gets you down to that unvarnished human level to be able to just get things done. And so with humility, when I was telling you about professional insecurity, or I was and I was talking about maybe those moments where um, you're being asked a question, but you really don't know the answer. So then that puts you in pause and like, how are you going to respond? So humility allows you to break that barrier, right? It allows you to be okay with you saying, I don't know that, or hey, I don't understand that exactly. Can you explain that a little bit better, or you know, or explain it in a different way? And the reason why that's important is because um, again, if you don't know something, and you fake like you do, um, you could end up making bad decisions down the road, right? Or you could end up making a bad decision right there and provide again those 3 things that we're supposed to be doing as leaders: providing guidance, managing risk for the organization, and ultimately making those well-informed decisions. So humility to me is extremely important. And I understand if you say I don't know too many times, yes, I would say, yeah, you potentially you can be looking incompetent. I get that. Um, but the idea here is that you're probably an expert in your knowledge domain. If you're not, you're probably working towards that expertise within your knowledge domain. And I just feel like you'll be able to afford to say, I don't know once in a while. Being authentic, this authenticity, sincerity. So you saw Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor's Handbook. Um, in that particular book, he says, you're either sincere or you're not. And if you're not sincere, people are going to see right through that. And I just feel like being authentic, being your authentic self, who you are in your own skin, being comfortable there, I think goes a long way, and it breaks down barriers as well. And then having a positive mental attitude. Right now, I could ask each of you to give me one thing that, one complaint. And I guarantee each of you have at least one thing to complain about. And I have at least 2. But why? And so there's no reason for it, right? And so in the workplace, all that good stuff, having that positive mental attitude, being able to work well with others, all that good stuff, it matters. It matters because productivity is what we want. We want to continue to progress whatever we're working on. So, and this again, if you could see the green banner there, cultivate cooperation, collaboration, critical thinking. And this is right from the Marine Corps, one team, one fight. But the idea here is that we're all one team. And so when I get into the planning piece, you're going to see where this comes into play, right? It's like you may be working on a team that is comprised of people from different departments. And you're probably right now experiencing that in your own projects now. And it's like, well, you don't want to be stovepipe. Like when you're talking about the project or your project or whatever you're working on, you don't want to be like, well, I'm in this department, you're in that department, and that's it. And I'm only going to talk to you when I need something rather than collaborating and cooperating. And then, oh, by the way, doing some real critical thinking about the problems that you're trying to solve, and then putting and developing plans into place to solve those problems. And so this is where it's that tie in to how is this going to impact you in the workplace. Okay, so I'm going to get into planning overview, but before I move on, um, that's pretty much what I have for the leadership piece. Does anybody have any questions? Anything that you want to share that could be beneficial? Maybe a situation you were in. I mean, anything. Just to highlight some of these things that I've talked about today. And oh, by the way, if you have something else that I didn't talk about today that has worked for you, I would love this forum would love to hear from you as well in regards to that.
I had a question. Like,
Okay, Nathan.
how do we motivate the teammates to work in the same direction? Like, make it fun for them. Like, more than a fight against something, can we make it look like, present it in a way that everybody wants to do this and is part of the same team? How do we work towards that goal?
Yes, that's good, Nathan. Um, well, one, I'm going to talk about it when we do planning, but at the end of the day, it's that first meeting with those folks, right?
Yeah.
When that team comes together, the leader should be ready to be able to announce and provide that guidance to the team, right? That I keep talking about. Um, you're going to be providing that guidance, and you're going to be creating that culture right from Jump Street about how we should be working together. And I just really feel it needs to be addressed. We don't do that a lot, but it's something that I know has worked for me. Where if I'm for the first time I'm coming together with a project team, and I'm the project manager, a lot of times if I'm not the decision maker, I want the decision maker in the room to provide that. Um,
Okay.
does that make sense? Because that is what provides the team the direction, right? Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, if you don't, what I've done is I'll go and talk to that decision maker and I'll say, hey, I know you're not going to be at this first meeting. I understand that, but I would love to give some guidance based on of what you may have for the team. And then I'll deliver that. Um, because when you first start out, that's no one knows anybody. So it's like, and you know how it goes. If you ever gone to a meeting, right? If you've ever been at a meeting and it's the first time you're coming as a team and no one's taking charge of it and providing that guidance and it's a little strange, you leave there a little strange, right? Like it's like, okay, I don't
Correct.
know how this is gonna go. And
Yeah.
and I just think that it's extremely important. It's like the first impressions is everything, all that kind of good stuff. But like you have to start from Jump Street, and this goes back to being authentic. Like you can't fake that. It's either
Okay.
there or it's not. I don't know if I'm
That, that
making
does
sense
that
to you.
does make sense, Rudy. Yeah. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's like in this environment, what I would tell you, if there's other opportunities where you can have team engagement, you know, we've done that. I've seen that actually here. So that's another way to do it as well. Let me see. I got some stuff in the chat. Okay, I'm being told that one person could barely hear me. Can you guys hear me? Anybody having any issues hearing me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me see. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? That was a good one. All right. Okay. So I'm going to get into the planning overview, and this is again nothing crazy. It's not a deep dive in any way, shape, or form. So what I want to start off with here is, you know, why is planning even important? Why is, you know, why are we even, you know, spending any time talking about planning? So here's just a couple things from a couple of the references that I mentioned. Um, it's like, well, planning, it is a preparation process, right? Planning is that by which harm is avoided and advantage gained. This was, I love this one from Sun Tzu. He, you know, when he stated this, when I read this, it's like, wow, okay, I understand, I can understand that. Um, and then, you know, in my own words, you know, poor planning is often cited as a cause of unsuccessful projects and or failed organizations. And I mean, I don't think our history is void of a lot of those examples out there. So planning and project management. So this right here is right from the process groups and a practice guide that is delivered from the Project Management Institute. So this right here, this diagram that's talking about initiating processes, then getting into the planning processes, executing, and then you go to closing. And in the center here, you could see monitoring and controlling processes. So the idea here is that there's going to be an initiating process. What is that? Well, you know, it could be that's the beginning or the alert that a project or something needs to get done. And the idea is that there's going to need to be some kind of planning that needs to be conducted as well. And then the executing processes, and this is where I say is there's a distinct difference, is because you should have a good solid plan that was well thought out, that that again you collaborated, you have cooperation, and there's been critical thought against it that allows you to now put that plan into execution mode, which a lot of times one of the main methods that I see out here is there's a kickoff meeting, right? So even in the project management body of knowledge from the Project Management Institute, they talk about that, right? And then the monitoring and controlling processes piece, that is all about project management. And then we close out the you know, the project, and we're done. So this is the plug where planning is supposed to be a process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question. Like right now, if I said today we're going to initiate a project, and according to that diagram, we're supposed to have some planning processes. How would you do it in your organization? Do you have a planning process that you follow right now? And if you do, like, how do you do it? In just general terms, we don't need to get into the weeds and seeds, but I just want to know, like, generally, like, how would you do that? Anyone? Go for it, Nathan.
We'll take a consensus on how to work around the solution.
Okay.
Like, this is the problem we are solving. This is our plan to solve it, and then break it down into chunks. And yeah, basically get a consensus on how much time is required for each of these chunks. and show it to everyone, ask if everybody is okay. If that's a pass, then go for it.
Okay,
Very rudimentary.
okay. What you just described is essentially what I've seen a lot.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not it's not crazy. I see that.
Okay.
Anybody else do something slightly different than Ethan? Okay, so Juliana, thank you for this response. The plan is based on the grant proposal. On the kickoff meeting, based on expertise, each person has some responsibilities. Then we have follow-up meetings every month. Okay, all right. That's what I've heard, or that's what I've seen too. Okay, all right. So in my planning session, I'm going to introduce. I'll be introducing a planning process that is very deliberate. And so, like being able to take a proposal, because a lot of times, and again, I'm learning this. So this is something I've been learning, and I've learned being here to the university where a grant proposal goes and it comes back approved, and I've been told it's like, well, okay, well now what? Now what are we gonna do, right? So now we actually have to execute this. So then they go into a planning process, right? And so how is that planning process? And again, I just saw it right here, the kickoff meeting based on expertise. Each person has some responsibilities, etc. Yep, got it. Um, and again, the approach that I have is it's very deliberate in being able to capture and think about those things to understand the problem that you're trying to solve before you develop a solution to that problem, and then being able to articulate it back out to the team that when it's time for the kickoff meeting, everybody is tracking exactly what the plan is. And then that flows into what I'm about to talk about next, which will be project management. So at the kickoff, you know, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. And that's right from the project management body of knowledge. And then why is project management even important? And again, you saw in that diagram that I displayed, it's going to help the team organize, monitoring and controlling of tasks and those deliverables, and probably across some kind of phasing construct that the team developed. Or the idea would be you developed a plan, um, so, and then you're going to be tracking those milestones, etc. So some key takeaways here. Um, like we've talked about, leadership grounded in humility, authenticity, and a positive mental attitude helps shape a culture of success. Um, and I would love for you to come back and tell me, I try to employ this, but it doesn't really work. I'd love to hear that. Um, I wouldn't want to hear that because it's saying that it doesn't work, but I would love to get that feedback. Um, and then leadership is responsible for mitigating the impacts of friction on the people they're entrusted to lead. And again, this goes back to the mindset that from a leadership perspective, right? Being engaged with your people, being involved with the issues that they're faced with, will allow you that ability to do that for them, to help mitigate some of those friction points along the way. Um, Something again that I've highlighted: planning and project management are definitely distinct, and they're not the same. And planning is all about understanding before doing. So what I mean by that is, again, truly understanding through critical thought, through collaboration, through cooperation of other people looking at the same problem, to be able to then understand the problem you're trying to solve, to then develop a solution that is cohesive, right? And then I think it was Nathan that you talked about getting everybody on the same page, having a consensus, all that good stuff, and then being able to execute. would be part of that. And then plan project management does not think for you. So this is huge because a lot of times people will take a process and they think it's um, it it shouldn't be the process that makes you successful. It's still your knowledge. Um, it's still the knowledge that you're bringing to the table that makes you successful. It's still the engagement in the process. It's still the effort. Those are the things that is thinking, and it's the action, right, that is going to make you successful, not the process itself. And I like highlighting that, just because of the fact that a lot of times it's like, well, I was introduced to this process, but why are we having issues? Well, how are you managing it when it comes to, say, the project management piece? Like, are you really engaged, or are you being aloof, and are you just allowing people to just do things you're not really tracking? I think it was Juliana, you talked about meeting once a month or what have you. Well, that's a meeting cadence, and those meeting cadences need to have, and there's something I talk about during the project management piece, where those meetings have to have a purpose. Why are we having the meeting? And they have to have a deliberate agenda. So, like, those are very important, as well. Okay, we're gonna get into discussion. And again, I have these two here, but it's just to get conversation hopefully moving. But we have about 29 minutes left for the session. I'm not going to take any more time than you need to be taken, that I need to take away from you, because we all are very busy. But this is an opportunity for us to really discuss maybe things that you're challenged with. Maybe there's things that you want to talk about, that maybe you want to share with others to maybe give you some insights, or what have you, or provide your insights as well. So the first question I have for the team here is, provide a leadership attribute you can implement immediately to enhance cooperation, collaboration, and communication across your team. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something I presented here today, but what is something that you feel that you have implemented in the past, or you've displayed some leadership attribute, um, that has allowed you to enhance or to improve that cooperation, collaboration, communication across a team? Okay, I'm gonna go randomly on my screen, right? So I don't, and I just want people to be comfortable here, because at the end of the day, um, I'm here providing this session, but I'm not the expert. All you have a lot of experience, and different experiences, not only from me, but from everybody else. Uh, you got it. I know you have uh, some very, good techniques or approaches. Um, so I'm gonna pick on Francesca.
Yes. So I always think that I'm always in between, like, all the meetings that currently happens, let's say once a week or twice a week, always meet, that is can help, like, presentation of, like, the work that are going on. And
Yes.
I think that can always help, but a lot of time it is very unclear to me how often they should be, because a lot of times, sometimes every week it's a lot. Sometimes there are moments where there is more to do. And so people, like, when they need to find time to do these meetings where everybody may present what they're doing in order to favor, like, collaboration or new ideas, no? And that's very important, I think.
Oh yeah, it for sure.
But for me, what is tricky is like how much time and when to do it and when it's good for everybody. So it's
So like one of the techniques, and that's thank you for sharing that, because one of the techniques that I share is um, when you're coming up with your plan, part of that should be the meeting cadence as well. How are you going to communicate across a team, all that good stuff. So when you kick off, everybody knows that every Thursday at 10 o'clock, we're meeting, and this is the agenda. Here's the purpose, why we're meeting, and here's the agenda. And these are the things that we're going to talk about. So I do talk about how to design your meetings to be productive. But more importantly, to answer your point, once that kickoff meeting is set, you can still go back and set these what I call meeting cadences,
mm-hmm.
but it's always best to do it before the kickoff. So when you do the kickoff meeting, it's briefed again. Hey,
Yeah.
team, because and there's the other piece is that again the leadership piece, right? Leading people, managing things, engaging those folks, and having the buy-in that when they come to that meeting, they know they are anticipating what they have to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because I know here, like it's to me that is extremely important. Um, but to keep people engaged as well, right? Because if they're coming to a meeting that's not well organized,
Yeah.
right? We're always starting late and we're always finishing late. We never finish on time.
Yeah, and also sometimes for me it's difficult to see, like, because there are projects in which there are more, like, let's say, more students involved,
Okay.
and some other there are like less, so it can be 1-to-1 or 2 people, no? But then if you want to favor collaboration and increase, then you may want to have a bigger one.
Yeah, exactly.
Other people that are involved in the project but not directly, and they can have their opinion, no?
Yes.
So that's also, I think they're different in a way because
They are. Yeah, you're hitting on it. It's like today we had I, I had a meeting that it's part of a larger project, but I had a meeting that we needed the stakeholders to be at. And so we deliberately invited the stakeholders because they needed to provide guidance to the team, right? So it's very deliberate.
yeah,
And so it's the way you design them, and yeah, and you'll know that as you're going through the execution piece. You get that sense. I don't know how else to describe it, but no, but this is good, Francesca. Okay, thank you.
okay.
All right, anybody else? Okay, uh, let's see. When it comes to, say, a project, or just leading a department or what have you, what have you seen that is extremely effective to get you moving in the right direction? So, like maybe right now you're being led. So, how you're being led right now, like, do you like the approach? Do you wish they did something different? Or or how you are doing it that you're getting good positive feedback from the people you're leading? Like, do you have any examples, anything at all?
In the short term, deadlines I feel help. It helps people move in the direction quickly for a short term. Hmm. But after a while, that stress becomes chronic. So yeah, it just affects everyone negatively. Yeah, but in the short term, yeah, I feel that you know. So I think breaking it down into minute goals help in a project
Okay.
because then the goals change over time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, Nathan, one of the things I address, right, in planning and then something that I also addressed in the project management piece is that because being here, we're primarily in research, right? So things do change, right?
Yeah.
But the idea would be that there's things that we can anchor, right? That we can anchor to, which are, we call them your anchor points, right? But it
Correct.
could be a timeline because you're on a grant and we know it's going to turn into a pumpkin in 3 to 5 years or whatever it may be. We know we have a limited budget, so we only have this much money, um,
Yeah.
and then we only have this amount of budget, so this is the people that we have and the expertise. So like there are some fixed things, some personnel maybe not always be fixed, but for the
Mm.
most part, budget, time, those are kind of fixed to some degree.
Yeah.
Um, but tasks, to your point, could change. But the idea is
Gotcha.
that if you have good, solid objectives and tasks associated with accomplishing that, and they're well thought out before you're actually in execution mode, those probably are going to stay pretty solid. Um, I'm not going to tell you they're not going to change, but the idea is that they shouldn't change drastically and it
Correct.
shouldn't be a derailment. But it's about understanding that you understood the problem you're going to try to solve, you understood it good, and then you guys applied a solution to it, and then you had a kickoff meeting. So I don't know if you guys are seeing the way I'm trying to construct the approach, but it is very methodical. And it's
All right.
not like putting the cart before the horse, trying to solve, and then we'll figure out how to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So, and then here, and Juliana said, clear communication of expectations. Love it. Yes. Sometimes the deadlines are not realistic, so feedback flexibility helps too. So that's another that's another reason, Juliana, and I love that. Thank you for highlighting that about deadlines not being realistic. This goes back to not understanding the problems that you're trying to solve. And you can always tie it back to that very issue. Is that, well, some people will be like, well, we didn't have all the information. You probably did. You just didn't research it and you didn't ask the right questions at the time. And we started trying to solve the problem before we really understood the problem we're trying to solve. And you're going to hear me say that a lot because I really feel like at the end of the day, that's one of the main issues I see with deadlines that are not realistic because they weren't well thought out. And and so I'm here in Data Science Institute, and we use Jira, which means that we're working on projects that require iteration. And again, it's just being able to, to have the team really think through like how long do you think this is going to really take you? Like being very realistic and pushing them to provide a good estimate. Again, it's not going to be an exact science by any stretch of the imagination, but you should be able to get pretty close. So that's good, Juliana. Thank you for that. Okay, anybody else? Anything else on that? Okay, team, I'm gonna ask what tell me anything or talk to me about anything that you know leadership, right? Before you know before you even seen that this was even a workshop, you read what the workshop description is. Now you're here. Now you've gone through it. Um, is this helpful? Is I would like to get any kind of feedback you have um, uh, from each of you. Anything like, okay, yeah, this met expectation, it didn't. Maybe you wanted to see something else. Maybe you have a question that I still haven't answered for you. Um, Please, this would be a good time to table those
I find this
things.
helpful. There are a lot of questions I still have in the back of my mind, like implementation. How do we go about that? And yeah, so I wanted to ask you one particular question. Like, what, like the way things are done now, uh, what do you think can be implemented easy and can have, like a 20% implementation and 80% effect? And a small change that you feel is vital in how organizations push themselves forward.
Okay. So one, again, if it's being led by a leader, right? Whoever that may be. Like, let's just say you, Nathan. I'm gonna take you out. Let me ask a question. Are you leading personnel right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay, but let's just say you are, or somebody is, right?
Okay.
So the idea again is making sure that you have a way, of venue, or yeah, a way to be able to address the people you're entrusted to lead, right? And say, hey, this is in the direction we're going to go, right?
Mhm.
Guidance is key. Now, that's not it. We're not done yet. So
Mhm.
you asked about implementation.
Yeah.
So one of the major things that I see that is extremely effective, and I don't want anybody to cringe, but it's about, if you're gonna look at meetings, because that's how that's the way we collaborate here, right?
Okay.
Those meetings should be relooked. You should look at them, reassess them, and really ask the question: does this meeting need to even be on our schedule? And if the answer is no, then why do you need to have a meeting with your team? And what is the agenda?
As in, there are too many meetings.
Yeah, because
Okay.
what I could see immediately is the assessment of everybody's meeting on your calendar. And I would ask the hard question: what are we accomplishing at this particular meeting? And if you can't answer that question, it's already indicated it's probably not a good meeting in the first place. And number two is, if you understand the why you're there, then you should understand what you're going to be talking about. And oh, by the way, how many people are at your meeting? And so one of the things I would always talk about is, if I have a meeting and people show up and they're 5 minutes late, or they're 2 minutes late, and there's 30 people on the call, right? Do the quick math. How much time did we just lose?
Correct.
Even though it's like, oh, it's only 5 minutes. Yeah, it's 5 minutes times 30 people.
Hmm.
Like, you start thinking like that, your meetings start on time and they end on time. And sometimes they end early, because we start appreciating the
Time.
time that we don't have and that we want to gain back. And so, to me, the right up front are those meetings. I like the workshop, talks useful, but as Nathan about specific strategies can be used to manage a project. For example, what activities increase trust or increase productivity, strategies for planning and team guidance. Okay, so I have 13 minutes, and Juliana, I'm gonna be hitting on some of this stuff in my plan, my project management sessions, for sure. But one of the things is, again, when it comes to increased productivity, we love meetings, right? So again, that's to me a major one major thing that I think a lot of people could. It's easy, right? Because you could look at your calendar right now and be like, yeah, that's a waste of time. That's a waste of time. But don't be negative about it. Like I always say, have a positive mental attitude, right? Be like, how can we construct and redesign this meeting so it's constructive and productive and efficient? Stand up meetings. According to, again, Project Management Institute talks about agile. So agile is one of the methodologies, right, for project management. And in there it talks about, there's a handbook on agile that talks about how a stand-up meeting should be ran, all the way down to ground rules. 15 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes should be a stand-up. And you're talking about just a few things, right? What did you do from the last time that we met to now? What are you planning to do between now and the next meeting? and what are your blockers. And so like that right there is efficiency. You're getting down to brass tacks. You're able to see where progress is being made, where it's not being made. And it's important to understand where progress is not being made so we can put resources against that to get that blockage removed. And so those are some, that's a strategy, that's a technique. Um, I I'm a big fan of what I call in progress reviews, where you don't want to be, you don't want to not meet with the team, um, and it has to be outside of stand-up meetings, things that are very quick. You want to have a very deliberate and an update to the stakeholders of where does a project, where are we in the project. And again, this goes back to planning. If you already have your milestones already figured out, you already have your timeline of deadlines, that's already, you knew all that because you did your due diligence and planning to understand the problem, you developed a solution, and now you did a deliberate kickoff meeting. Everybody is on the same page. Here is the project timeline. These are all the things that we need to get done. And when you're having these in progress reviews, what technique I use is I have a milestone. And let's just say it's like, I'm gonna give you an example. This is a real project that I'm managing right now. There's a milestone that we're hitting on the 31st, right? So that's in a few days from now. Guess what I have on that day? An in progress review technique. Because now the team knows they have an in progress review and they're gonna be talking to the stakeholders, the leadership, and the leadership is gonna be told, this is, we didn't meet this, or we met it. What do you think what do you think that those teams want to tell the stakeholders? That they didn't meet the deadline for that for that particular milestone, or that they're already moved on to the next one because they crushed it? Which one do you, I mean, obvious, right? It's a rhetorical question, right? It's like, obviously they want to say that they crushed it. It's done and we're moving on and we're actually ahead of where we thought we were going to be on on the 31st. So like those are those things, these are like minor techniques that motivate people, that inspire them. But again, it's about being engaged with them, being engaged with your people. Juliana, I love what you said about getting your hands dirty with your people. Yes. Yes. So now, does that answer, let me see, does that answer your question, Juliana? At
Yes,
least
thank you.
to some degree. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I found the such, thank you. I'll have to drop. Okay. Nathan, no problem. All right, he's gone. So it's 12:52. We have about 8 minutes left, but I don't want to take anybody else's time. That I don't need to. Does anybody have any questions, last minute questions, comments, anything? Okay. So team, this is what I'll tell you. You have my name. You could punch me into and an email. If you're having a roadblock, you just want to ask any question, just hit me up on email. Just and anything I can help you with. We have templates that I've developed for the Data Science Institute that I feel are extremely helpful, and I'll be sharing those during the next two sessions with if you want them. So again, and I feel like these things are not theory. These are things that I use on a daily, and they work, and I've used them for many years. So it's so, but I am available to you. And I would just say, look at me as a resource. and I'll make myself available.